Hey, Tim Baranga from Worksaver here, and you just bought yourself the new Futura laser system that goes on our 6-way grader blade, and we're going to go through how to properly install it on the grader blade today. So the Futura system comes with a hard carrying case, and in the carrying case you have your 2 receivers to read the beam, and you got your controller that all the cables will hook into. And look on the back of the controller, you can see that all 4 connections are a different pin type, so it is virtually impossible to hook this up incorrectly. We tried to make this as user-friendly as we can. To mount the controller, we have the RAM mount that comes with it and the attaching hardware. And then to mount the receivers, we have the holders, the mounts that go on our telescopic poles. The receivers themselves will run into the node, which will have your right and left. And right and left is when you're standing behind the machine looking forward. That way you know the direction. These cables that come with the kit hook up the receivers to that node. And then depending on what OEM skid steer you have, we have the different wiring harnesses that'll go from your 14-pin to our 10-pin Canyon, and then the 3 connectors that hook into the controller. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to get the RAM mount mounted, and we want to get the node cable T-box mounted. So we're going to do that with the hardware supplied in the kit. Box and the RAM mount mounted, we're going to go ahead and mount our receivers. Now the receivers do have an indicator on them for down, up, and level. I always like to face them towards the back so you can see them as the operator. So anyway, you got to line up these screws with the holes in here. Don't have to, but it does make it a little bit more secure connection. Where's the connect? Okay, that's right there. And of course you'll adjust these as you get your beam set, but just right now we're just putting it up there to get it out of the way. Pro tip, hook this cable up before you hang this, a little easier. Oh. I said we'll adjust all this when we get the laser set up, so right now we're just putting it up here. Okay, then we take this and we hook it into the box. There's a little groove right there, and there's a little knob right there, so you just push it in, hook it up. Okay, we'll do the same on the other side. Then we can tighten this up. And while I'm hooking the cables up, I always like to leave it up like this so I got easy access. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all 4 connectors are different pinouts, so it's impossible to hook this up incorrectly. So this is the information coming from the receivers, and it goes in this slot right here. Okay, then we grab our wiring harness, uncoil it. Okay, like I said, the 10-pin, it connects down here. And the nice thing we did with this system, this 10-pin Canon connector, it's what we've been using since 2010 on the Worksaver graders. So if you have an older grader out there, this new Futura system will hook up to it. You don't have to buy anything extra to run your blade with this 2D laser. Now the 10-pin, you gotta kind of screw it on, and you gotta push it, and you gotta make sure it's tight, because if the pins aren't set, it won't read the signal correctly. Okay. And then we have the 3 connectors. This one here is your power. So it goes on the right. And they're actually labeled on here too. But like I said, they're all different, so you can physically not hook these up incorrectly. Okay, this one would be the in-cab controls, the information coming from them. And then this is the information going to our 10-pin Canon connector to have the valve adjust to whatever the laser beam says. Okay, check our connections. All right, loosen this. Everything's nice and tight. Then we'll go ahead and tighten this up. And anyway, we're ready to hook up to the skid steer. So we'll do that next. And as I mentioned on this end, this will hook to your OE 14-pin connection and integrate everything with the in-cab controls. All right, well, we got the skid steer hooked up. Now it's time to hook up the hydraulic lines, and remember to always wipe them off and keep dirt out of the system. And then we just hook up our 14-pin. All right, where's the little thing? Yeah, it goes like that. And then we'll take another cable tie and we'll kind of coil this up and keep it out of the way. On this, want to leave a little slack in there. Anyway, that'll keep everything out of the cylinders. All right, everybody, we got the Futura laser system set up on the grader from the previous video. Now, to go through the setup instructions, you do have to have the skid steer running, and you do have to have the hydraulic flow going through the valve. So I've got an operator sitting in there just waiting on me to go through the screen. Now, I purposely turned it to the side so it'd be easier for you to follow through with me on the different screens and what everything does. So when we come to the first screen, these are your manual offsets. So this is kind of the default home screen that the controller will go to every time. And you can control the left or right, and you can go up to 2.11 inches plus or minus. And if you need more than that, we recommend that you get a transit with a telescopic pole, so that you can just simply go and change the beam height on your transit if you're going between pads and need more than plus or minus 2 inches of elevation. So anyway, to enter the setup manual, or menu, excuse me, this is the menu that doesn't require a passcode. All right, this is the filtering page, and it goes from medium up to full, and your right can change your settings, and then your left will go through the different screens. But anyway, we recommend just being a little bit over half. The faster you have it is the quicker the grader's going to react to elevation changes. And I've been told that on a job site where you have windy conditions and you have maybe the receivers wiggling, or maybe the transit's wobbling with the wind and the beam's kind of dancing, that this can cause chatter. So they recommend turning this down to the mid-range. To start, I would just put it about 3/4 or just slightly below. Next is the deadband. All right, this is the distance on the receivers where the receivers will not react to a change in elevation of the beam. And you can set this from all the way down to 0.04 of an inch, all the way up to 1 3/16 of an inch. If you have it set all the way to the minimum, every little adjustment in the beam or your machine is going to cause the valve to move the blade, and that can create chatter. For most jobs, we set it about 1/4 inch, and that seems to work pretty well for the different jobs we're on and everything. Okay, next screen is the horn. You can turn this on to where there's an audible horn when you go in and out of grade. Being that this is mounted outside the machine, we just leave it off. Manual override. This is set up to where you can change things with the buttons here on the machine, outside the machine and everything. It doesn't matter if you have it on or off, but for the initial setups, you do want to leave it on. Here you can change unit of measures. It's factory set to inches, but you can change it to feet or to millimeters, but most of everybody in the US uses inches. Okay, this is the manufacturer's phone number. So if you can't get a hold of Worksaver or your Worksaver rep and they can't help you, then you can call this number and they'll be able to help you walk through it. Then again, it goes to the version control. Okay, so after we're done with that, it goes back to its home screen. So if you want to do the advanced setup, the advanced settings in here, you go back to this screen, you push both these buttons at once, and that takes you to the advanced. Okay, the remote is set up as momentary. What this allows is us to go in and out of auto to manual from the in-cab controls. If we didn't have this set up on momentary, you wouldn't be able to go in and out of auto using in-cab controls. So just leave that set on momentary. Valve type, we do use a proportional current valve, and 200 hertz is the correct setting. There's other options in here to where you can set it at different hertz, or you can set it to proportional time and everything, but the valve that Worksaver uses is 200 hertz proportional current. Okay, now the minimum DC test. This is what you want to do when you put this on a new machine that it hasn't been on before. And anyway, you got to have the hydraulics flowing through the valve. So you go to test, and anyway, you want to lower it down. And as you start to increase, and we're doing the left side first, you'll see the valve start to move. So then you just change direction, do the same thing. And anyway, as you scroll up, the valve will start to move, so then you're done on that side. Okay, so then we're going to go next. The valve gain, we recommend starting at 50%. The higher the gain is, the more aggressive the oil is going to react, or the valve is going to react to changes in elevation. So if you are still moving a little too fast, or it's being a little too aggressive, you can lower this gain down, but we recommend starting at 50% and then seeing where it goes from there. Okay, derivative you want to leave on medium. Auto return is not on the system, so it's off. Tilt sensing is not on the system, so it's off. And in factory settings, if you had to restore to the original settings, you could do it here. Okay, labor receivers are latex. Passcode, this is set at the 1000 from the factory. We recommend leaving it here. If you go and change your password and then you call in for tech help and we don't know your password and you don't remember it, we got to do a system reboot and start everything over from scratch. So just leave it set at 1000. All right, English, you can change languages, set to English. Okay, we're using 2 laser receivers. All right, now this is going to do the right side valve. So 200 hertz proportional current, correct? Then we're going to go to test. And like I said, we'll lower that down. And then as we increase it and the valve starts to move, that's where we want to be. So now we'll change directions. We'll start to increase it. It's starting to move. So then we're done. So then we hit stop. Okay, valve gain, once again, we're starting at 50%. Medium derivative. And then we're back to the original control. So this is a very simple system to set up. You control your filtering, how fast does it react to the beam change. You control your deadband, and then you go into the advanced settings that we just went through, and you put in where the machine starts to go up and down at what minimum DC. And once you're done with that, you're ready to go to the field. So then you're going to set up your beam, level your receivers, and you either set it on 0 or put a slope on it, and then make adjustments from there. Okay, we talked about being able to take the controller in and out of auto from the cab. So it's in auto right now, so I can independently control all the functions of the blade, and also my front and forward reverse too. But anyway, so that doesn't kick it out of auto. If you want to take it in and out of auto, you got to hit both the down buttons on the left and right cylinder, which would be the bottom buttons inside the joystick. You click them once, that takes it out of auto, and now you're in manual, so it won't receive the beam, and you can control any of the hydraulic functions. And then if you click both down buttons again, it'll go right back into auto, so that it'll start reading the beam again. So that's how you get in and out of auto and manual with John Deere skid steer, is the 2 bottom buttons on the joysticks. You just click them once, they're out, click them again, they're in.